It is hard proven science that the more meat you eat, the less effective plant medicine will be on you. Now think about that for a second and think about what they tell us our diets were. But we know that we used to use plant medicine. Something seems a little bit off here. So let's get into the science. I'm going to be relying heavily on my notes because this is like deep, deep science. I don't want to mess anything up. So commonly when people are trying different medicines, plant-based medicines, and they're being recommended stuff, all that we consider is just like, this worked for me, I recommend it to you. Or you had it, I'm gonna take it. We don't consider what our diets are and what they have been for years and years, and then even what our ancestors' diets might be. We're gonna keep it right here in the present just to keep it simple so I can make this a quick video. What's coming into play when I say something like, the more meat you eat, the less affected you are by plant medicine? It's your microbiome. The microbiome of somebody who's heavily eating meat is extremely different from the microbiome of somebody who is not eating meat. There's literally more things that can convert food into beneficial nutrition in the microbiome of somebody who does not eat meat. Somebody who is eating it literally cannot produce the things that will turn the food into nutrition. And that's what happens a lot of times when people that eat like this are trying to do plant medicine. They're not going to get as many effects, whereas somebody who doesn't eat like them is going to have immediate effects to the point where they're going to rant and rave about this. They're going to be singing the praises of this being the miracle drug, the miracle ingredient. But their counterpart, who has a much different meat-heavy diet, might not even feel anything for weeks and months, if at all. Because if they're very, very heavy on it, and they're eating very processed bad meats too, then there's a chance they could never have any beneficial effects from this because they have not cultivated a microbiome that can even process these plants into medicine for their own benefit. So a foundational 2022 review published in Frontiers in Microbiology established that phytochemical biotransformation by gut bacteria is not a niche process limited to a few compounds. It's the standard mechanism by which a broad range of medicinal plant constituents become pharmacologically active. As the authors conclude, effective components such as flavonoids, alkaloids, ligands, and phenols cannot be metabolized directly through human digestive enzymes, but can be transformed by enzymes produced by gut microorganisms and then utilized. So this class encompasses nearly the entire pharmacopoeia of traditional herbal medicine. Almost all herbal medicine that exists, your ancestors' recipes, will not work on you, even if they are totally sound and have not been changed for thousands of years because somebody changed your diet. And now your gut doesn't even produce the necessary stuff to make medicine for you. You are hooked. You're locked into the new system because of the new diet. This is colonialism. The same review documented specific bacterial actors involved in these conversions. The species Blacktia AUHJLD56, of course, on the screen as per usual. For instance, demethylates curcumin to produce anti-inflammatory metabolites. Resveratrol, the celebrated polyphenol in red grapes, is why they always say red wine is good for you, but it's not the red wine, it's what's making it red. This requires Slackia, equalifacins, and Igerthelia lenta for conversion to its active dihydro form. Lignans from flax seeds depend on the Blauta producta. I'm getting a lot of these wrong, but it's good information. And the Gordonibacter and the lacton effactor to produce heterolactone and enteridiol, the metabolites responsible for their reported anti-estrogenic and cardioprotective effects. Each of these bacterial species belongs to the broader ecosystem of plant fiber fed microbiome, right? So these things that I just said, all these big words I can't pronounce, you aren't going to have them available in your system to do the good work that they need to do if you are not getting enough plant-based fiber, specifically plant-based fiber, and the prebiotics that come along with that. If you buy a bag of prunes, you know that, prunes have fiber in them, but you'll also see on the bag of prunes, this is prebiotic. And it's not because they're putting prebiotics in there. It's natural. It's in the plants so that you don't have to take supplements. You just need to have a healthy diet of plants. So most of my stuff that I've been talking about has been surrounding curcumin because we're going deep into the science of turmeric, because I have, in this first set of recipes, been focused on golden milk, also known as haldido in India, which is our, turmeric milk drink, our, magical brain potion that is anti-inflammatory, right? Because we know inflammation in the brain make you stupid, right? So curcumin provides the most extensively studied example of this phenomenon, right? So in 2020, a review in Nutrients titled Interaction Between Gut Microbiota and Curcumin, a new key of understanding for the health effects of curcumin, addressed the long-standing paradox of curcumin's low systemic bioavailability against its well-documented pharmacological activity. So they're saying, look, we know curcumin is so good for you, so how come when I give it to certain people, it's not working like these studies say it should, right? So the authors propose that curcumin's effects are mediated primarily through gut microbiota, your microbiome. How curcumin is going to affect you is based on your microbiome. How all plants will affect you is based on the health of your microbiome. So it's not just systemic absorption and that different composition of the microbiota among individuals will cause different biotransformation of dietary curcumin. The beneficial effects depend not only on the curcumin taken from the diet, but also on the type of microbial population of the individual. That is Sagzikyo 2020 study on the screen. So in one experiment highlighted by the review, fresh fecal samples from healthy volunteers were used to culture intestinal bacteria in vitro. When curcumin was introduced, it was metabolized into 23 distinct compounds through pathways including acetylation, hydroxylation, reduction, and demethylation, with the specific metabolite profile varying significantly between subjects based on their microbial compositions, right? So, a 2024 study in food chemistry using antibiotic treated mice further confirmed this by demonstrating that depleting the gut microbiome with broad spectrum antibiotics substantially reduced the production of curcumin's bioactive metabolites, including the highly potent tetrahydrocurcumin. That was the study by Park in 2024, right? And let's finish it up with some stuff straight from the notes. And again, if you didn't understand that, they're saying, again, people's specific gut microbiomes are going to determine how plant medicine affects them, or if it gives any effect at all. So, perhaps the most quantitatively compelling evidence for the diet microbiome phytochemical connection comes from research on equol, a metabolite of the soy isoflavone diazine. Equol is significantly more biologically active than its precursor, binding to estrogen receptors with documented effects on menopausal symptoms, cardiovascular health, and hormone-related cancer risk. However, producing equol requires specific gut bacteria, and not everybody has them. Multiple independent studies have now established a striking population divide. Only 20 25 to 30% of adults in Western countries are equal producers, compared to 50 to 60% of adults in Japan, Korea, and China, where traditional plant-forward, soy-rich diets are the norm. That study is Sechel and Clarisi in 2010. And then a clinical study published in the Journal of Nutrition directly comparing vegetarians and non-vegetarians found that 59% of vegetarians were equal producers, nearly identical to the rate in high soy Asian populations, while only 25% of non-vegetarian adults qualified as producers. That's Sechel 2005. Critically, across sectional gut microbiome studies using deep shotgun sequencing confirms that equal production status is determined by the gut microbiome itself, not by isoflavone intake. Equal production is mostly determined by the gut microbiome, this is a quote, of the participants, while the intake of soy isoflavones plays a minimal role, if any. This is a key finding. Consuming more of the plant compound does not compensate for the absence of the necessary microbial converter. The infrastructure must be present first, right? So if you're like, I'm taking curcumin, I'm eating the turmeric, it's got the bioactive compound curcumin in it, and people say they feel this. I've been doing it so long and I feel nothing, right? Well, unfortunately, you can't just take more. Taking more isn't going to do anything because you don't have the fundamental architecture in your gut to process any of it. So, back to the notes. The implication here is not simply that plant medicine is less effective for meat eaters. It is that the entire pharmacological mechanism, the conversion of precursor compounds into bioactive metabolites, is operating at a significantly reduced capacity. This affects curcumin, resveratrol, ligands, isoflavones, and likely the majority of plant medicine constituents. A higher dose may provide short-term compensation by flooding the conversion system with more precursor material, but the more meaningful long-term intervention is a dietary modification to rebuild the microbial infrastructure. Research on equal production specifically identified that diets higher in complex carbohydrates and lower in saturated fats are associated with greater equal producing capacity, consistent with a shift toward plant fiber as the dominant fuel for the key bacterial species involved. Sechel 2013. And if you need a summary on what that means, basically, once again, you need the plant fiber. You gotta be eating these plants to build the infrastructure in your body that can process the healing properties of plants. And you do that, plant fiber, more plants period in your diet, eating the plants properly, making sure you're eating plants that have natural prebiotics, right? So here we go. We're going to wrap it up with the conclusion. The evidence reviewed here supports a clear and clinically significant principle. The gut microbiome is not a passive bystander in the pharmacology of plant medicine. It is an active and essential co-processor. For a wide class of phytochemicals, including curcumin, resveratrol, ligands, and soya isoflavones, gut bacteria perform the biotransformation steps that produce bioactive metabolites. Without the appropriate microbial populations, these compounds pass through largely unconverted and untherapeutic. Dietary pattern is the primary determinant of whether those populations are present. Long-term plant-based diets consistently produce microbiomes with greater diversity and higher abundance of the species responsible for phytochemical biotransformation. Meat-heavy diets produce the opposite profile. Two people sharing nearly identical genetics can therefore have dramatically different responses to the same exact herbal preparation. And it's not because of their DNA, but because of what they have spent years eating. This insight has meaningful practical applications for individuals with meat-heavy microbiomes seeking the benefits of plant-based medicine. Short-term dosage increase may help compensate, but the sustainable path is prebiotic and probiotic dietary enrichment, fermented foods, diverse plant fiber, and reduced saturated fat to cultivate the microbial infrastructure that makes plant medicine work as intended. Okay, so that's the end of my little speech there, and I'll say it one more time in case it didn't get through the other 5 times, and that's not to make fun of you. I'm happy to say it again. The more meat you eat, the less effective plant medicine is on you. The more vegetarian, vegan, plant-based your diet is, the more effect you will get from plant-based medicine because you actually have built the architecture to process it properly, right? Now, let's get back to what I said at the beginning. If we think about the science of this, plant-based means plant medicine works. Now, what lies are they telling you about your ancestors and how they ate? What is this caveman diet bullshit? What you think you cannot process plant medicine on a meat diet. There is no ancestor who was out here just eating meats unless they are the most sickly individuals you have ever seen. In fact, a meat eating culture in a plant medicine world, especially when everybody was brewing it themselves from the, woman in the tent up, like, there's nobody that could have survived without the help of plant medicine. So if plant medicine couldn't work for you, you could not survive. So think about that and think about what that means for the lies that they tell you about how people used to eat, the lies they tell you today about how people should eat. Because at the end of the day, I think all you have to know is that medicine cannot work on you with a standard American diet. Like, period. And that's proven science. You can go check all the sources.